Have you ever wondered what the story of project management looks like? Well, in this video, I am going to split the history of project management into 6 ages. The first stage of project management is what I call the prehistory of project management, and there are 2 key dates. The first is 4004 BCE, before the Common Era. This was the date that the Bishop Ussher calculated as the date of creation. And what's important to us about that date is that this was the very first project that delivered ahead of schedule. God finished a day early and had a day of rest. But seriously, the prehistory of project management is long and complex. Our ancestors built many huge, fantastic constructions, many of which still stand today after thousands of years. And the one I'm going to pick to slap a date on it is the completion of the Great Pyramid at Giza. The date often given for the completion of the Great Pyramid at Giza is 2570 BCE. And without a doubt, the people who led the construction of that pyramid must have been using some fairly sophisticated project management methods to plan, to schedule, to resource the project and to get it done. What we can't possibly know is the extent to which they hit their schedule or their budget. But what I think we can be sure of is that, like us, they will have been operating in a massively political environment under a lot of pressure to get it done on time and to deliver with the resources that they were given. The early age of project management is around the turn of the 19th to 20th century. In 1896, Karol Adamiecki developed his harmonogram, and although he didn't publish it immediately, this was the precursor to what we now call the Gantt chart. Although it is not by any means certain that Henry Gantt would have been aware of Adamiecki's harmonogram. Therefore, when he published his chart, which now bears his name, the Gantt chart, somewhere between 1910 and 1915, it became instantly associated with him, and he subsequently applied it in many projects through the early part of the 20th century. But for me, the golden age of project management started in the second half of the 20th century, after the Second World War. 1957 and 1958 are the dates given for the creation of, first, the critical path method developed by the Dupont Corporation in 1957, and secondly, the program evaluation and review technique, the PERT method, that was developed by the US Navy as part of its Polaris program. And by 1962, formal project management processes were so widely used in US military projects that the US Department of Defense mandated the use of work breakdown structures in all of its projects in 1962. And the 1960s also saw the foundation of 2 of the great project management organisations. The first of them, in 1965, is what we now know of as the IPMA, the International Project Management Association. Although it was founded as the International Management Systems Association, but the IMSA was renamed in the same year to Internet, which stood for International Network, and it remained that until 1996, when it was renamed the International Project Management Association because the Internet. 4 years after the foundation of the IPMA, in 1969, the Project Management Institute was also founded. And 3 years later, in the UK, saw the foundation of the Association for Project Management, the APM. In between those 2 events, Winston Royce described the waterfall process, thereby giving an unfortunate name to basic predictive project management. The last event that I put into the Golden Age happened in 1975. This was when a project management methodology called Prompt 2 was created. PROMPT stands for the rather clumsy Project Resource Organisation Management Planning Technique, and nobody remembers it today. But see soon why it's an important milestone in the history of project management. Next, we move on to what I'm going to refer to as the Silver Age of project management. This is where we see some of the foundations being laid for much of the way we do modern project management, but there were really no great project management innovations in this period. Most of what was going on was happening outside of the project management world, and we were yet to bring it in. And perhaps globally, the most significant of these was the creation of the Toyota production system in 1978. This was all a part of how manufacturing production operations were run. But the TPS, the Toyota production system, gave us what we now recognise as lean, and also set up the Kanban method, both of which were later to be incorporated into the corpus of project management methodologies. In 1984, Eliyahu Goldratt, an Israeli academic, published his book, The Goal, which introduced the idea of the theory of constraints, and this was later to become very important to us as project managers. But once again, the theory of constraints, as Goldratt initially articulated it, was all about production and process environments rather than project environment. And 2 years later, in 1986, we saw another product environment innovation, which was to become a big part of project management. In an influential Harvard Business Review article, Takeuchi and Nanaka invented the idea of Scrum, using the metaphor of rugby and a rugby scrum to articulate how new product development can work effectively. Their article was called The New Product Development Game. There were, however, a couple of important project management events in the Silver Age of project management. And the first of these, in 1987, was the publication by the PMI of a document called the Project Management Body of Knowledge. This document was to become the progenitor of what we now know as the Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, the PMBOK Guide. But no, this itself was not the PMBOK Guide. And do you remember that rather bizarrely named prompt methodology? Well, in 1989, the UK government's Central Communications and Telecommunications Agency took the prompt methodology and made it its own. And with another triumph of fantastic acronym building, they called their methodology Prompt in the CCTA Environment, which they shortened to PRINCE. Happily, later the PRINCE acronym was changed, and now we have PRINCE standing for Projects in Controlled Environments. But the last significant act of the project management Silver Age was the creation of PRINCE. After somewhat treading water, I refer to the next age as the rebirth of project management. And it started in 1991 with the development of a methodology called Crystal Clear by Alistair Cockburn. And this was the first methodology that we might recognise as agile. Throughout the 1990s, we were to see the birth of many agile-like methodologies before the creation of agile itself. Methodologies like rapid application development, Scrum, and extreme programming. Of those, Scrum and extreme programming are still with us, of course, and it was in 1995 that Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber developed the Scrum methodology for software development. And a year later, in 1996, Kent Beck and other co-workers created extreme programming, another methodology that we think of as agile for software development. But agile software development was not the whole game. During the rebirth of project management, we saw some significant events in what we would now say was the predictive world of project management. In 1996, we saw two important steps forward. The first was the publication by the PMI of its first Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, the PMBOK Guide, first edition. And also in 1996 saw the publication of Prince 2, a massive revision to the Prince methodology, now under the custodianship of what was the Office for Government Commerce. A year later, Eliyahu Goldratt published another novel, The Chain. And it was here that he applied his ideas of the theory of constraints to the project management world and developed what we now think of as critical chain project management, a new take on the critical path method and an important contribution to the way that we develop our approach to delivering predictive projects in project management. Finally, as this period closed in 1997, we saw the creation of the fourth of what I consider the major global project management organisations, the IAPM, the International Association of Project Managers. And this brings us to the 2000s, the modern age of project management. And it kicked off in 2001 with the publication of the Agile Manifesto and the 12 Principles of Agile Project Management. A few years later, in 2007, David Anderson first applied the ideas of Kanban from the production environment to software development. Now, Kanban was also a project management methodology. In 2009, there was a major revision to Prince 2, the methodology formerly known as Prince. But, critically, it remains Prince 2 to this day, despite other revisions in the intervening period. And at the same time, Agilists were also creating more new methodologies. In 2012, we saw the development of disciplined agile delivery by Scott Ambler, and this was an attempt to take agile to an enterprise level and therefore was something of a hybrid between pure agile and predictive project management. And in recent years, we've seen more hybrid methodologies appear, including two that have been developed by friends of mine. Elio Costa developed the Flex methodology, and Nader Rad and Frank Turley developed P3 Express, both of which are issued under Creative Commons licenses, which mean you can learn them and make use of their materials and ideas for free. As a British project manager, in 2017, I cheered because that was the year that the Association for Project Management finally received its Royal Charter. And to bring us bang up to date, as we close the year 2021, it was this summer, the summer of 2021, that the PMI issued the 7th edition of its Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge. And this was a massive revision. It wasn't an evolutionary development from its predecessors, the 1st to the 6th edition. It was a revolutionary change. And I truly believe that PMBOK 7 takes us forward as project managers into 2022. Please do give us a like if you've enjoyed this video. It took a long time to research it and I did have great fun. And I will be creating loads more great project management content for you. So please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of that content. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.